Hello everyone, this is Zeeebo and welcome to today's video. So in today's video, I'm gonna do another discussion about a topic which I've talked about within my streams a lot, and that is the balancing of the game itself. So balancing as in the hero balances, as well as what the heroes can do, what they should be doing, as well as the overall power level of the whole hero pool right now. So just bear in mind that this is a discussion video, so there will be people who will agree with me as well as people who will disagree with me. So I foresee that, right? I totally can agree with different points of view, but I'm just going to voice out my personal opinion, so feel free to voice out your opinions within the comment section below. So first of all, I'm talking more of it from the arena point of view because I'm more of an arena player, but I'll still generally talk about the overall power level of the units within the game itself right now. So the reason why the title say that the game is not balanced right now, or rather it's going haywire right now, is because I think there's a general imbalance in power between the different heroes. So I think this issue stems from three fundamental points or root causes, and that is number one, there isn't really a test server for the hero buffs and changes, right? Sometimes you want to make older heroes more viable, but the developers don't really have a place to sort of test it out first before implementing it. So this leads to the second problem, and that is that changes to units are often irreversible. So yes, I often tell people that they could nerf some heroes left and right, but I think for Guardian Tales, because it's really hard to get the resources for the unit, it's you need a lot of gems, you need a lot of hero crystals, you need a lot of limit break hammers to maximally break your heroes as well as their weapons. So let's say if they were to do a nerf, it could actually affect a lot of players, and that is another major problem itself. Of course, some people are free to play, they spend all their resources on the most OP hero, and then if the most OP hero gets nerfed, then they are probably going to quit the game, right? Because most of their resources are gone. So that's why the first problem is one issue, and that led to the second problem, because if the buff is not right, then they can't nerf it. So the changes, because it's irreversible, it's a major problem. So the second point also leads to the third point indirectly, and that is you need to introduce newer heroes to counteract the strong heroes. So what this means is that, let's say one hero is really good, right? It's so good that it dominates the meta. You need to introduce a unit that can counter it. But the thing is, if the hero is really good in general, you need to introduce another hero that is fundamentally better in many aspects, so that people will choose to use the new hero over the old OP hero. So this will lead to a continuous cycle of power creep. So these three reasons linked together forms a vicious cycle, whereby because you don't test it, you introduce a really OP hero and you can't really change it after that, and then you have to introduce an even more OP hero to cover it, and then you have to buff your old heroes and it's not tested again, and then the whole cycle repeats itself. So I hope you guys can see this cycle thing. So right now, I'm going to use Mono Earth for example. So in my stream as well as my own comments, I often comment that Mono Earth is imbalanced. So let's talk about the three units in the Mono Earth composition. Number one, we have Rue. Number two, we have Camille. And number three, we have Mayriel. So all three units are fundamentally really powerful, right? Camille and Mayriel can be used in multiple game modes simply because of how good they are, and Rue is just simply a beast in arena itself. So for example, Rue was initially not so strong when she was first released. Not a lot of people were using Rue, but later on, right, they were actually using her in raids because of her Earth party buff. But when Camille came out, right, Rue's spot within the Earth team sort of got replaced, and Rue had no place to go. So this caused the developer to buff Rue up, and this caused Rue to be a lot stronger within arena, because there was a major patch where Rue was buffed a lot, right? I've been following a lot of patch notes. So there was a patch that Rue was buffed crazy lot, and she became a beast she is right now. And Camille being really powerful and being an Earth unit makes it such that Camille and Rue is insanely scary, right? So this is the two units that were they sort of like introduced, they affected each other, and they buffed up each other. And then for Mariel's case is, I can understand the rationale for Mariel's change, right? They kind of want to make Mariel and Bari stronger individually, but Bari was a pretty mediocre unit, right? By limiting Mariel, because you have to use a mediocre unit to pair with Mariel to get her 100% potential, that sort of like made Mariel a more balanced unit. Like, make no mistake, right? Before the change, the 30% damage change, Mariel was actually a pretty decent unit. Not the most powerful one, but she's really, really good in arena itself. So when you already have 3 units that are really, really good, that makes it such that you know, overall the team is very solid already. And the thing is, when they separated the party buff or the special ability of Mariel and Bari, right, to the point such that if they just group them up with any other earth units, they will get their damage reduction as well as their damage increase respectively, this made Mariel uber busted, because right now Mariel is no longer limited by the fact that you have to pair her with a mediocre unit to get her 100% potential. So you can pair her with the other earth beasts such as Rue and Kamel, which I mentioned earlier, to form this uber powerful team. So why is this a problem for the game? Like I mentioned earlier, in order for you to balance out the strong units or the strong team compositions, you need to introduce a new unit. Right, so the new unit will probably be very good as well to counter the mono earth, or really, really niche to counter the mono earth. So there's 2 paths to it. If it's really, really niche, the unit will be blocked out of other game modes. And overall, if you talk about utility, Mariel and Kamel is gonna have way more utility than the unit if the unit is specifically built to counter them, because you're probably looking to counter them in arena, but you can't really do much in raid, and you can't really do too much in other game modes like story, etc., right? Because you can actually solo the whole game with just Kamel alone and maybe 1 melee unit, right, to deal with all the pesky immunities. But Kamel is more than enough because it's really, really good. And back to the point where I always talk about mono earth is really imbalanced, is that this team composition doesn't have any defensive buff. It beats out any team composition that doesn't have a fire unit prepared for it right now, because not a lot of unit can go head on with them. And even if your unit is able to go head on with the mono earth teams, right, there's only 2 possibilities. Number 1, either the opponent that you're playing against is really weak and you have way more stats than them, because overall you guys can see that a team without any defensive buff don't survive for very long. So their goal is to shoot you down as fast as possible, and your goal is to outlast them and kill them before they shoot you down. So this is how straightforward the earth team is. And if let's say you have more stats than them, naturally you're gonna beat a comp that relies on stat itself. And since we are on the point of stats, right, if you're somebody with middle to low stats, let's say if you are a beginner or if you just picked up the game for a bit, you run a mono earth comp, your book collection is not so solid, you go into the higher tiers, you're going to get beaten up a lot, because people in the higher tier, example top 100 players, they will have the stats, they will have the knowledge, and they know how to play against you. So all they need to do is have a unit that can counter your lineup, and you're probably going to lose. And the thing is, you're not losing because you are bad. You're losing because you don't have enough stats. Because mono earth doesn't require you to know too much about the game. It doesn't require you to know how your opponent match up. Because all your mono earth need to do is charge in and try to kill your opponent. There's no like, oh, I'm going to use my weapon skill, I'm going to rely on dodging kind of thing. They don't really have like dodging mechanics. And yeah, Mariel herself used to be like a dodge and use weapon skill kind of unit, but with that buff that they gave her, she simply just have to press her attack button and she can kill you as well. So yeah, if you're a mono earth user, you might think that you are really good, but how much do you know about the other comps that could be really, really good as well? Probably not as much. But I'm not saying that you shouldn't use mono earth, right? Everybody has their own rights to choose what comp that they want to use. And yeah, like I won't really blame people for playing mono earth, because it's really easy, it's really solid, it's really strong, it's very versatile as well, because you can use the units everywhere else. Like I mentioned earlier, Mariel Kamel, very good in all other game modes. And for Rue itself, right now she had replaced Bari for the raid slot. So yeah, like these 3 units, they're just really, really good all around. So there's no wrong in using them. But the thing is, this comp is really boring, and if you are using this comp for quite a while, I hope people who are using them can sustain their passion, I guess, because like the thing is, if you're just gonna like go in, press the attack button and kill people, I don't know how much enjoyment you can get. Maybe you like it from destroying people, but once you get destroyed, it doesn't feel very good. So yeah, that's the issue with it. And this video is pretty unscripted, so I would like to apologize if my points are all over the place. And this, all this stuff that I talk about leads to the fundamental issue that the endless power creep in Guardian Tales is pretty unstoppable. Like, the units are just gonna get better and better, and no matter how you choose to buff the older units, they are not gonna see a lot of use. They are gonna be underpowered because of how the structure of the game works out. So this is pretty much how it is for most metas of any other game, right? A strong unit is often gonna overshadow all other units, but the issue right now is that the game will attempt to buff older units to make them more viable. But the thing is, how do you know buffing the old units will not make them overpowered in the case of Rue? Because in the future, you're going to introduce a unit that could possibly synergize with another existing hero. And if you buff this existing hero for way too much, such as Rue, right, it's going to tilt the balance of the game once again. So yes, meta is a thing, right? Every game will have their own set of meta. I'm perfectly fine with a meta that requires you to use more of your knowledge of the game, use more of your understanding of the game to actually play, rather than a comp that just goes up and press a normal attack button and win the match. That's something that I totally cannot see and I totally don't enjoy, right? Even if I beat it, it doesn't give me a sense of achievement, because the thing is, right, if you beat a mono earth, chances are the player is bad or the player is just understated. Very simple, right? But I want a match that both of us are good and we have an even match that are hot-blooded. So that's my take as an arena player. But mono earth is just not providing that, and it's terrible in my honest opinion. And I think another major issue that people often don't realize is that heroes stay for very long. Because let's say if I introduce a really good unit or I have a really good team that exists in the game that is meta, then if the unit that comes out doesn't counter it, right, this meta team is going to stay in the game for a very long time. I think at least 2-3 months, right, depending on how fast a counter comes out or how fast a counter unit comes out. So for example, let's take Kamel again, right? I will just use Kamel. Like, Kamel has been introduced for quite a few patches, but the mono earth team has been really strong for at least the past few months. And like, even with Clara, which is a fire unit that is supposed to counter the mono earth team, the mono earth team is still seeing a lot of use. So you guys can see that sometimes even if you introduce a unit that is supposedly supposed to counter the fire units, it's not going to change the fact that this team is still going to be really prevalent and commonly used, just because of, you know, the balancing issues which you have done wrong. So after talking so much, I think right now the earth meta is gonna stay for probably a few more months or even just a few more weeks if a counter comes in the near future. But yeah, this comp has been prevalent for very long. It's the same as the old Future Princess thing, but at least Future Princess wasn't like an omnipotent force in everywhere in the game, right? You can't really use Future Princess in raid itself, like she's not feasible there. So yeah, it's good to have a hero that's generally good in every game mode, but it's not healthy to have a team composition that is so dominant in nearly every game mode in the game. So that's something which I think is really important in terms of balancing, because yeah, people who don't use that comp is gonna suffer a lot, and people who use that comp, good for you, right? But you're not gonna find too much enjoyment if you don't win a lot or if you start losing a lot. So yeah, that's my take for this hero balancing issue. So yep, that's it for this video. Feel free to voice out your opinions about the balancing of Guardian Tales in the comment section below. I'd love to hear it out, and thank you very much for watching. Do remember to like and subscribe in order to see more Guardian Tales videos from the channel. I'll see you guys again in my next video. Bye guys.